Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be doing a deep dive and telling you how to grok the Scorpion. So I want to start this off by giving a big thank you to one of my viewers, one of my regular viewers, Sam H., who requested that I cover the Scorpion in an episode of Grokking Battletech. So Sam H., this episode is for you. Now, before I get too into this, I do want to say I've got a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store. You can get yourself some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. Like the shirt I'm wearing right now, coincidentally, the I Drink and I Game shirt. It's what I do. That has a mug of ale and a D20 on it. This is available over there as well as others. There's also a link to my Patreon if you're in a position to and would like to support the channel. All right, let's get into the Scorpion. The Scorpion is one of the first couple quad mechs ever released for Battletech. In the original edition, I believe they had two. I think it was the Scorpion and the Goliath, if I'm not mistaken. And storyline-wise, it was the first quad mech ever designed. So this is a very early design of a quad mech, and quad mechs themselves being a rather rare thing throughout the history of Battletech. It's a little bit of an oddity because there are only actually a handful of quad mechs through all time periods. So I want to start this by talking about why you would want a quad mech rules-wise versus a regular biped mech. So there are a few things that quad mechs do better than regular biped mechs. So I'm going to discuss that. And what's going to kind of be funny is the basic version of the Scorpion does not really take advantage of much of any of it, which is part of why I'm going to get into where my favorite variant of the Scorpion is, which takes advantage of more of it better, and also the custom variants when I get into those, why it is that they take advantage of what's better about being a quad mech. So the first thing that's better about being a quad mech is that quad mechs get a -2 difficulty to all piloting skill rolls to remain standing as long as all 4 of your legs are completely intact. So this can really help with a couple of particular designs. If you're looking to make some custom quad mechs yourself, having 4 legs fully intact, giving you that -2 difficulty to remain standing can be huge if you want to make a mech that's going to run around in cities and want to keep from skidding out. So something specifically designed for city fighting. It can also be really good for a mech that's actually designed to go up and kick people, because while these mechs can't punch, their kicks are just as strong as biped mechs, and if you miss, you have a better chance of not falling down yourself for the miss, so that is really good. In addition, because of their -2 to remain standing on all checks to remain standing, they're a really good platform for things like the heavy Gauss rifle, which cause you to have to take a piloting skill roll to remain standing from the recoil of this incredibly big gun. So all of those are really good things to do with quad mechs because of that particular ability of theirs. So now the next ability of quad mechs that I want to go into is the fact that quad mechs have lateral movement. Basically, they can crab walk. They can walk sideways. Now, when you look at the hex, you've got the straight in front of you and the straight behind you. And when walking with a normal mech, you can walk forward, you can walk backward. When running, you can run forward. Now, with a quad mech, it's a little different. So first off, all 3 of the reverse spaces, not just the one directly behind you, but the ones to the left and right behind you, those spaces count as reverse. So when walking, you can walk backwards, either back left or back right, as well as straight back. Means that walking and walking away to maintain distance with long-range guns, quad mechs are much more maneuverable than a regular biped mech, with the exception of biped mechs with jump jets, which are even more maneuverable than quad mechs. But they're an interesting middle ground there. Now, in addition, whether walking or running, the front left and front right, you can move into for 2 movement points, plus whatever extra movement point charge there is for the terrain there. For instance, if there's a forest, it'd be 3 movement points. Now, the thing is about doing this, though, is it's situational. Sometimes this is going to be better. Sometimes actually turning and moving in that direction, if you're going to move for a while, will be more cost efficient. But it opens up an extra option of movement for both running and walking for the quad mechs, which again makes them a little bit more maneuverable situationally, because sometimes that crab walking will be better than the way a biped mech could do it. Again, this makes the quad mechs really great for circling an enemy and maintaining range in a way that is more difficult for biped mechs, as long as we're talking about biped mechs without jump jets. And the final thing that quad mechs can do that is a bit different than biped mechs is there is a passage in the rulebook, of course, that references the fact that you can, for one movement point, you can drop prone. And for most mechs, this is not very worthwhile because even though you mechs that are not adjacent to you get an extra +1 difficulty to hit you, well, it's much easier to hit you when they're adjacent to you, but if they're further away, they get an extra +1 difficulty to hit you. The problem is with most biped mechs dropping prone, you got to prop yourself up on one arm if you want to fire, and then if you're going to go to stand up, you have to pass a piloting skill roll or you fall down. But the thing with quad mechs is quad mechs can fire all weapons on their body without having to prop themselves up with an arm. They don't even have arms. They just use their legs. They'll kind of lift up a little bit, and they can fire everything. And then in addition, quad mechs don't need to roll to stand back up. It still costs the 2 movement points to stand up like a normal biped mech, but they do it for free. Okay, so now the Scorpion, in my opinion, the base version of the Scorpion, and the reason I have a problem with it is I feel like it only takes advantage of that last bit, the being able to drop prone, and get an extra difficulty to hit it while firing. So let's go over what I'm talking about. I do feel like a lot of the early versions of the Scorpion don't take enough advantage of all of the benefits of a quad mech, but I have a favorite version that I feel does take advantage of some of them more. And like I said, I also designed some specifically to take advantage of some of the abilities of the quad mech that that none of the Scorpions really, in my opinion, take advantage of. So we're going to go over them. So first off, we're going to start with the basic version of the Scorpion, going all the way back to the Star League era. Technically, I believe it was actually designed by the Terran Hegemony, so it predates the Star League. This is a very old mech. And this is the SCP-1N. Now, the 1N Scorpion is a medium weight mech. It's 55 tons. It's got darn good movement for its medium weight. It is a 6'9" movement. Now, this is something I will not complain about, the amount of speed that this mech has. It's basically equivalent to some light mechs. Now, there are light mechs that go a lot faster than 6'9" for their movement, but some of the light mechs that are a little more, substantial, like the Wolfhound, are 6'9", and it's a decent amount of speed. For a light mech, it's actually quite a good amount of speed for a medium mech. Medium mechs don't usually go this fast. Plus, again, being a quad mech, it is more maneuverable than a biped mech of the same size with the same speed. Again, while not being quite as maneuverable as a jumping mech. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is the weapons loadout. And this is the first part where I start to get a little bit of an issue with this mech. So the mech has a PPC and an SRM-6. Now, don't get me wrong. I love PPCs. I also love SRM-6s. But the weapon loadout for this particular mech, you've got the PPC, which has a fairly good range and can fire and do 10 damage. And you have the SRM-6, which has a very short range and can fire and do the spread of hits. But there's only like a really small magical point where both of them are likely to hit in the middle. And even when you get to that point, the amount of heat reduction on this, only being 10 single heat sinks, means that in that magic point, you're going to start to overheat. Everywhere else, you can fire one or the other all day long and be fine, but it's not a lot of firepower for a medium mech. Generally speaking, it's only slightly more firepower than a Panther, which can jump, so it has a similar amount of maneuverability, though it's slower. But it only a little bit more firepower than a Panther. It's fairly unimpressive for a 55-ton mech. A Griffin, which is 55 tons and has a PPC and an LRM-10, feels significantly better for the weight than the Scorpion 1N does. So I'm a little underwhelmed by its firepower. It's not the worst, but it's not great. And then the bigger problem, in my opinion, is the armor. Now, granted, this is a mech that is devoting a lot more of its defensive capabilities to its speed and maneuverability. You're going to run around and dart from forest to forest, drop to the ground, drop prone. Try to get, a +1 or +2 difficulty from your movement while getting another +1 from the forest, while getting another +1 difficulty from dropping prone. That's mainly how you're staying alive. But because of that, its armor's fairly lackluster. You've got 10 in each of the 4 legs. You have 24 on the center torso. That's the best armor on the mech. You've got 11 in each side torso and only 8 on the head. So you don't even have the full 9 on the head. Now, I want to specifically draw attention to the fact that those side torsos have less armor than you have internal structure there, which that's not a lot of armor. You have 13 internal structure there, only 11 armor. On the rear, you have 5 on each side torso and 8 in the center. That's not too bad. But yeah, generally speaking, the armor is not so great in this. So this is, if you're playing Star League era or you're playing Succession War era, this is not a terrible mech, but it's not a great mech either. How I would use this is, like I say, I would run around trying to stay at about medium range of that PPC. The SRM6 would be a backup weapon if something got too close to you. You would run from forest to forest, run into the forest, drop down to the ground, and get the extra difficulty to hit you. Really rely on those extra difficulties to hit you to snipe your opponent. This is the one benefit of a quad mech that the Scorpion takes advantage of well, which is its ability to go prone to give a little bit extra difficulty for your opponent to hit you. And at the ability to run 9 and move 6, even when entering a forest while walking and walking backwards diagonally, you should still, even with the extra slowdown, should still be able to get a +1, maybe even a +2 difficulty to hit you. Once you're having to stand up again, it's probably only going to be a +1, but if you get a +1 from the forest, +1 from going prone, that's a +3 difficulty to hit you, which is actually pretty decent while only giving yourself a +1 difficulty for walking. And again, you can walk in 3 directions in the rear, which is really, really nice. So that's how I would try to keep the Scorpion alive. And for the weapons available on most mechs of this size in that period, it's not terrible. All right, so now let's talk about all the variants and how they've changed over time in regard to the various versions of the Scorpion. So the next version is the SCP-10. Now the SCP-10 is a little bit later time period, and the main difference with the SCP-10 is that we swap out the PPC for an ER-PPC. The ER-PPC gives you a little bit better range on that PPC. You don't have the minimum range anymore. That is great because now you can fire that ER-PPC and the SRM6 when you get close, so you can run in on somebody. You have a reason to run in. Either if you want to, like if you see an enemy standing next to a level 1 hill and you want to run up on that hill to be able to kick him and have that 1 in 6 chance to kick him in the head, which could do a lot of damage. Not enough to fully head cap someone with full armor. You're actually 1 damage short, which is another issue. But you could go in, you could fire everything, and you could kick him in the head. It also doubles the heatsink capacity because it has double heatsinks, 10 of them, which means you've got 20 heatsink capacity. This is a significant upgrade. It's still not awesome, but it's good. This version of the Scorpion is good. This is one I would take in the clan invasion time period, especially because it's only 1,098 battle value. It's not bad at all, really. So a little bit surprised by that, but the one of the biggest problems is it still has all the same problems with the armor. So now let's move on to the next version of the Scorpion, which is the SCP-1TB. That's Tango Bravo. Now, the SCP-1 Tango Bravo. This version of the Scorpion is a Jihad era upgrade. It has a much wider variety of weaponry, and it's interesting, but it's still got the issues with armor. So now you've got still the 10 double heat sinks, which is a good amount of heat sinking capacity for it. Your armor is still pretty low, but it mixes up the weapons a little bit. It's got 2 light PPCs. They only do 5 damage each. They do have that minimum range of 3, which is a bit of an issue. But now it's got a multi-missile launcher 9 instead of the SRM6. So this becomes more of a kind of support mech to fire clusters of weapons around. And when it gets fairly close, could still do lots of clusters of SRM ammo, thanks to the multi-missile launcher 9, which actually will hit harder at close range than a SRM6 will. Now, the next version of the Scorpion is my favorite. This is the one that I actually really like and would definitely use. It is a Jihad era version, which makes it a little bit tough for me because I don't often play Jihad era, but I would play Jihad era just to try this one out because I actually quite like this one. This is the SCP-10M. M as in Mike. Now, the SCP-10M, it ups the armor a little bit, enough that it's a little bit more survivable. You got 18 armor on each leg. It reduces the armor on the center torso down to a 21 to help spread it out more. The full 9 on the head and a 14 on each side torso. This is only a small upgrade to some of these areas, but it's enough that you're going to at least be able to survive a little bit more. And then also, it also increases its survivability via speed and maneuverability. So instead of being the normal, or what is pretty much normal amongst most Scorpions, of the 6-9, without a mass system. I forgot to mention before that the 1TB actually has a mass system, so it can go all the way up to 12. But its normal movement is still 6-9. But instead of that, this has a normal movement of 7 walking, 11 running, which makes this much faster, much more maneuverable, and gives you a lot more points for running from forest to forest, which I think is a big thing you want to do with the Scorpion. Is you want to run to a forest and get some cover and drop down, and then next turn, jump up and run to the next forest and keep moving. In addition, this mech has a heavy PPC, which is one of the benefits of the Jihad era, is you start to get a lot more interesting kinds of firepower. Here we have an energy weapon that can do as much damage as a Gauss rifle, and then we have an LRM-10. So once you punch a hole with that heavy PPC, punch a hole in that armor, you fire the LRM-10 and you use those missiles to try to find the spots you've already punched a hole in. This is a very self-reliant and reliable mech, and with its improvements to speed and improvement to firepower, this is, in my opinion, the best cannon version of the Scorpion. But you pay for it. It has a battle value of 1,458. But that's fine. I'm willing to pay that for this kind of firepower and this kind of maneuverability and this kind of speed in a 55-ton mech. Actually, this version is fantastic. So the next version we're going to talk about is the SCP-12C. That is C as in Charlie. So now the SCP-12C is a Civil War era version. We're back to the 6-9 movement. Of course, we still have the 10 double heat sinks. This one, though, takes a different tact. While staying at the same movement, this one is significantly up-armored. We've got 26 armor on each of the 4 legs, 24 on the center torso, the full 9 on the head, and 20 in each side torso. So this one can actually take a hit, like a proper hit. This could take 2 PPC or autocannon 10 hits to either side torso before getting into the internal structure. It has an ER PPC, an INARC, an ER small laser, and an improved C3 CPU. So this is obviously meant to be part of an improved C3 network. You've got the ERPPC. The weapons are actually kind of otherwise downgraded, though. You're really just relying on the ERPPC and maybe spotting for some bigger mechs with this one. I like that it's more survivable. I don't like that it's more of a letdown in regard to the firepower. Now, I know C3 networks can be very powerful, but also you pay for those with battle value. It increases the cost of the lance. So I'm not a huge fan of this version. The next version is the SCP-12K. Now, the SCP-12K is another Jihad version, and this is another one with a multi-missile launcher 9. Again, I love those multi-missile launchers. It also has a snub-nose PPC, which means you actually want to get close with this thing. It has a C3 master, and it has an ER medium laser, while maintaining the 10 double heat sinks, and also maintaining the really nice armor of the previous mech we were talking about. This version is great. This is one I think is fantastic. You are fast, you're maneuverable, you're better armored. It might be a little bit of a vulnerable place to put that C3 master, but if you're going to do a C3 network with a Scorpion, I'd rather use the 12K because it has a lot more firepower, and it's specifically, while it can fire some of those missiles off at long range, it feels much more of a dedicated close range mech. This is one I would use for like city fighting. I would run around with this, I'd get in close, fire off the multi-missile launcher 9, the snub-nose PPC, and the ER medium laser while spotting for indirect long-range missile fire from some, from a longbow or an archer or something. So yeah, this is actually quite good. This is probably my second favorite version of all of the Scorpions. Now, the last of the standard variants is the 12S. Now, the 12S is a Civil War era version. We have the 6-9 movement. The armor drops down a little bit, back to 18 on the side torso, 16 on the legs, 21 on the center torso, full 9 on the head. We still have the 10 double heat sinks, but this one just has an LB-10X autocannon and an SRM-6. So this is a slight upgrade, in my opinion, to the original version. You lose the minimum range that the PPC had, so it's a little better, plus the ability to fire Cluster ammo is pretty nice, and it does come with both cluster and solid shot rounds because it has 2 bins of ammo for the LBX-10 autocannon. This is definitely an improvement, but not anything to really write home about. I like it, but it's not, it doesn't really have that wow factor like my favorite version does. Now, in regard to custom versions, there's a single custom version from the Succession War era. It is the SCP-1N Wendell. This version just replaces the PPC with a large laser. I actually do think this is, for the Succession War period, a significant upgrade because that large laser doesn't have a minimum range. So you can run in close, you can hit him with the large laser, you can hit him with the SRM-6, you can fire both at once. Granted, the large laser is less damage, but it's more reliable at hitting up close. This is one I would use for city or canyon fighting. It's not bad. Okay, so those are all the cannon versions of the Scorpion, and again, the 10M is my favorite with its heavy PPC and LRM-10. I think it does a good job there. But now, while there were some somewhat decent versions of the Scorpion for city fighting, I wanted to make some better ones in the time periods I like to play in. And of course, my 2 favorite time periods to play in are Clan Invasion and Succession Wars. So I decided that these custom variants were created as a way to refit your Scorpions if you had some that you weren't very fond of, because they are notoriously considered a poor reputation mech. These were conversion kits put out by my own personal mech design firm, KIWF, named after the first letter of the last name of its 4 founders, but affectionately nicknamed Kill It With Fire by its fans. So the first version was done by its founders during the Succession War, and it is the Scorpion SCP-1N KIWF, and this is a way to turn the original Scorpion into something that I think takes better advantage in general of all of the abilities of a quad mech for city fighting. So what we did was I removed the PPC and I replaced it with 2 more SRM-6s as well as another ton of SRM ammo. Now, with the 2 tons of SRM ammo, you could make one of them Inferno rounds to try to overheat a mech, while the other one are regular rounds to just run up behind a mech, turn a corner, and blast them in the rear with 3 SRM-6s at close range. On the other hand, if you're not a fan of trying to overheat mechs, you could just have 2 bins of regular SRM ammo. Now, that doesn't seem like a huge amount of ammo, but remember, this is the sort of mech that's going to spend a turn or 2 running around and getting into position before it ambushes somebody with those 3 SRM-6s and rips off all their rear armor. I like this version of the Scorpion a lot. I like it a lot better than the basic version for Succession War time period play. And this is one I would definitely use. And FYI, it comes out to a battle value of only 923, so it's quite affordable for this medium mech that could really ruin somebody's day by shooting them in the rear. Now, I wanted to do an upgraded version for the Clan Invasion time period, so here we have the SCP-1N KIWF-2, which is upgraded for the Clan Invasion time period. So to upgrade it, what I did was I added an endosteel structure. Now, the endosteel is to reduce the weight a bit so I could add just a little something extra on, and that is a medium pulse laser. So we still have the 3 SRM-6s. However, we have moved the ammo all into the left torso to put a case on it to protect it a little bit better. We have 2 SRM-6s in the left torso, 1 in the center torso, kind of moved them around a little bit from their more spread out version they were in the KIWF-1, but we added a medium pulse laser to the right torso to give it a little bit more firepower. I think still in the Clan Invasion, this is going to be a really nice either canyon or city fight sort of ambushing mech where you turn a corner, come around the rear of an enemy that was trying to face one of your bigger mechs that's coming towards them and just tear off all of its rear armor. I think both of these would be a lot of fun to play with and would definitely surprise your enemy who might not be expecting this kind of close range firepower from a Scorpion. So now, again, my favorite version of the Scorpion is the 10M, who has the heavy PPC and the LRM-10. What mech warrior would I recommend you use with that version of the Scorpion? I am going to recommend Luna Takanaka. Now, Luna Takanaka normally pilots a Locust, but in this case, I'm going to be putting her in a Scorpion. And here's the thing. So she is a 4-cost mech warrior. So you're going to be using her in a game where you and your opponent have agreed to use a 4-cost mech warrior. She has a gunnery skill of 3 and a piloting skill of 4, which means she's even better, significantly better at piloting the Scorpion than a normal mech warrior would be. She has two abilities. She has Human TRO, which gives you a +1 modifier when rolling to check for critical hits. Now, with the loadout of a heavy PVC and an LRM-10, this is a great ability for her. She's going to be punching through those armors and then finding the holes she's made with the heavy PVC with those LRM-10 missiles. Yeah, that's great. So she's going to have a better chance of getting crits and knocking out your opponent's big guns, which is really nice. And then the other thing, because of, like I said, I really like to, with mechs like this, use their maneuverability to move from forest to forest. She has Terrain Master Forest Ranger. Subtract 1 movement point when moving through forest or jungle terrain, and add a +1 to hit modifier when being targeted inside a forest or jungle terrain, which means regular forests are basically open terrain to you, but give you an extra +1 difficulty to hit, so +2 difficulty to hit. And heavy forests cost you only 1 to go into, like a normal forest would, but give you a +3 difficulty to hit you. This is fantastic for the strategies I have already been laying out for how I would like to use the Scorpion here, and especially with this fairly fast Scorpion. You can go walking 7, ignoring forest, and stopping in a forest. You move 6 spaces and then drop down prone. At 6, think about this for a second. At 6, you get a +2 difficulty to hit you for the movement at 6 hexes. You're in a forest, which goes from +2 to +3. You have the ability for Terrain Master, which goes to a +4. You dropped prone, that's a +5. Now, you're going to want to stay at like roughly medium range. Stay back and be hitting with those heavy PPCs. You want to be staying at like, basically about 12 hexes away from your opponent, with most things are going to be at medium range. So if your opponent's at medium range, that's 7s. If your opponent walked, that's 8s. +8 to hit you. If their normal skill was a 4, that's boxcars. Yeah, this is going to make your Scorpion very survivable because most weapons aren't even going to connect. Your opponent will have to be using one of their special mech warriors to even have a chance of connecting. Even then, it's not going to be a great chance. If they have a gunnery skill of 3, they're down to an 11. If they have a gunnery skill of 2, they're down to a 10. They need to have a gunnery skill of 1 just to get it to a 9, which is still more likely to miss than it is to hit, and by a fairly good margin. So yeah, so this mech warrior on the Scorpion is going to be absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend it. So let's fill out the rest of the lance. Now this is a Jihad era mech, so I decided to make a Jihad era lance. Moving a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I had fun with this lance. I think this lance is going to be very characterful and a lot of fun. And the theme of this lance is mobile big guns. So we're going with a Firestar. This is a 6,000 battle value Jihad era lance that gets the Firestar ability. Now remember, the Firestar ability says that at the beginning of each turn you get to declare 2 of your mechs to have, they get sniper, they have the range difficulties for medium or long range. So what I did was I loaded this lance up with lots of big guns. Every mech in this lance has a gun that can do 15 damage or more at range. So these guys are brutal. They also have a lot of weapons that then can fire clusters of weapons and find the holes that they make in the armor. It's kind of a lance where there is no slouch. Everybody is a decent mech in my opinion, and they really stick with this kind of sniper Firestar theme. Now, the requirements for the Firestar is that at least 75% of the units in this formation must be missile boat or sniper mechs. So I went mostly sniper here. I've got 3 snipers and a brawler, which fulfills the requirements just fine. So what else do we have? So in addition to the Scorpion, the second mech, I decided to go with another quad mech. Because, you know what, I had quad mechs on the brain. Thanks so much for the request. Because of the request, I had quad mechs on the brain, and I was looking at other quad mechs, and I decided to go with one of my favorite versions of the Goliath, which is an assault mech, quad mech. It is an 80-tonner. This is the Goliath GOL4S. It is a Civil War era version of the Goliath. He's got a walking of 4, a running of 6, which is fairly fast for an assault mech. He's got a decent amount of armor with 25 on each side, torso 37 in the center, and 33 on each leg. Full 9 on the head. He's got 10 double heat sinks, and then for his armament, and here's where this mech really shines, he's got a heavy Gauss rifle, which remember, heavy Gauss rifles at close range, which is short range, which is 6 hexes away, can do 25 damage, and at medium range, which is 13 hexes away, can do 20 damage. Now, it goes down to 10 at long range, so you're going to want to run until you're at least in medium range, and then start walking those 4 hexes, and walking around and getting yourself into some nice forests and some heavy forests, and slamming the enemy with these big hits from the heavy Gauss rifle. In addition, because this is another quad mech and it's mounting that heavy Gauss rifle, you are going to have to take a test every turn to remain standing. But the quad mech gives you a negative 2 to that difficulty, so you are very likely to remain standing. This is a great platform for a heavy Gauss rifle, the Goliath. In addition, it has 2 ER medium lasers and an LRM-10, all of which can be fired off to help find the holes that have been made by those big guns on your Scorpion, your Goliath, and the other 2 mechs that I'm about to mention. Now, also, I do want to say the Goliath will be the mech that you will improve the stats of the mech warrior based on your opponent's 4-point mech warrior, because you're going to want this heavy Gauss rifle to hit. You want this to be ludicrously accurate. So because you're also going to walk into at least medium range, it's not going to be as likely that you're going to need to put the sniper ability that you're giving to 2 of your mechs on the Goliath. You're probably going to give it to 2 of your other mechs. So instead, you're just going to want to have a really good ballistic skill. You're going to walk in and fire away and never fall down, because you're going to also probably have a good piloting skill as well. So now the third mech I put in is the Osprey. It is the default version of the Osprey, which is the OSP-15. Now the OSP-15 is actually a Star League era mech, though it was not introduced until much later because it was supposed to be a fairly obscure mech. But this is a really maneuverable, maybe not super fast, but really maneuverable medium mech. It's a 55-ton mech that has a 4.64, so it's got 4 jumping, which makes it very maneuverable. It carries a Gauss rifle, an LRM-10, and 3 medium lasers. So you've got the big gun, and again, lots of other small weapons to find the holes that you're making. That is the theme we are definitely going for with this lance. And it's actually got a rather decent amount of armor for a medium mech. We've got 30 on the center torso, 22 on each side torso, 24 on the legs, and 16 on the arms. And considering that the main armament is not really in the arms, we just have the medium lasers on the arms, the main armament, the Gauss rifle, as well as the LRM-10 are in the torso locations, you can have your arms blown off and still be quite dangerous with this. It could be a zombie mech, really, really tough to get rid of. And because it can jump, you can jump from forest to forest or jump in behind an enemy and unload on their rear armor. Really good mech. And to round it out, we have the basic version of the Hollander, also known as the Gauss rifle on legs. Because if you are not familiar with the Hollander, this is the smallest mech ever to have a Gauss rifle mounted on it. Basically, it was created with the concept of what is the smallest mech we can get a Gauss rifle on. So it is a 35-ton light mech, has a movement of 5'8". Its armor is terrible. It's got armor of 6s, 10 on the center torso. It's got 8 on the side torsos and only 8 on the legs, but though it does have the full 9 on the head. But at the 5'8", it's at least it's not super slow. And it has a Gauss rifle. So what you're going to want to do with this thing is you're going to want to keep moving and moving quickly, but staying back. You're probably going to give this one the sniper ability along with either the Osprey or the possibly the Scorpion. But you're going to want to stay back, maybe even at long range, but at least at the max of the medium range for its Gauss rifle, which is 15 hexes away, to make most enemies harder to hit you. You're going to want to be moving at least those 5 spaces every turn. Possibly running if your opponent's getting too close. You maybe need to run to pull away, because you don't want to make it easy to hit you, because it'll only take a couple of direct hits from most firepower to bring down the Hollander. But with the other mechs coming in closer, and specifically the 80-ton Goliath breathing down on your opponent, bearing down, running right up to their face to shoot them with a heavy Gauss and kick them and knock them down, yeah, they may not be paying that much attention to the Hollander, even though it is the weakest link in this lance. I think this could be quite a deadly and fun lance to play. This would be one I would definitely like to try Let me know what you guys think. Do you have a different favorite version of the Scorpion? Are you a bigger fan of the old Succession War, Clan Invasion time period Scorpion models than I am? What do you think of my custom versions? Do you have a different custom version of the Scorpion that you like to do? Comment down below. Let me know. In addition, if you have a different lance that you would like to take with a version of the Scorpion, let me know about it. Comment down below. Also, if you have a request for a mech you'd like to see me cover in an episode of Grokking Battletech, I am trying to focus in on all the mechs that were introduced in the earlier time periods, those being Star League, Succession War, and Clan Invasion and Civil War periods before moving on to the later periods, because I really prefer Civil War and earlier. Those are my favorite time periods. But if you have any mechs that were first introduced in any of those time periods that you would like me to cover, feel free to request them down below. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.